Unreal Blueprints, functions. Let's review what we know. Blueprints is a visual scripting language using graphs, collections of nodes, and, of course, the nodes themselves to find functionality. We create a blueprint by making a subclass of an existing actor. Using the My Blueprint panel in the Blueprint editor, we can add variables and access other graphs. All actors have an event graph, which has events we can listen to and respond to within the blueprint itself. Let's continue this theme of looking at the My Blueprint panel within the Blueprint editor. So when we have a blueprint pulled up, we can add and access different structures within that blueprint. Something we're going to focus on within this video is functions. Within the Functions section of the My Blueprint panel, we can add functions. But what are functions? So, functions are a separate graph. They are a sequence of functionality. Similar to other programming languages where we might create methods or functions to do different tasks or perform different small actions, we can create separate graphs, functions, within Blueprints and Unreal. Then when we want to perform that actions or complete that task correspondingly within that function, we then call the function based on existing programming terminology. So we call the function and it performs whatever task or set of actions we have created for it. So we define a function, we create a sequence of nodes using the execution pin between them. Do this, do this, do this, do this, potentially creating output, but it doesn't have to. And then somewhere else, usually another graph, usually within the event graph, based on some type of event happening, we then call that function and then perform that sequence of functionality in the order that we've defined it within that function. Let's look at all of this within Unreal. Moving over to Unreal, we will see I have created a cube, dragged it over from Place Actors into this level and placed it right there. I've also created a blueprint, a subclass of this cube, which is accessible either right here or double-clicking right here. And we can see this is the blueprint for the cube. Okay, so I want to create a new function because what I want the function to do is to call the node print string. Not terribly complex, but we can see how all of this functionality works in Unreal. So within the My Blueprint panel down here, over for functions, come over to plus function. I'm going to rename this. To start hello. Notice when I changed it, it changed it here. It also changed it up here. Previously, we've been using the event graph. Notice we now have a new graph, this function, start hello. Notice it is down here within its own little node, start hello. And then it needs to do something. So function again is just a sequence of functionality, similar to how it might be a function or a method defined in another programming language. So I'm going to pull off the execution pin, drop it. What I want to do is print string right here. Fantastic. Come down here. I'm going to change its text color to something a little more exciting. Nice hot pink. And I'll just go with hello. That's fine for now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and compile. Now in a different graph, I'm now going to call this function I've just defined, call this collection of nodes. So over in my event graph, what I want to do is now call this function. So I'm just going to do it as part of event begin play. So dragging off this execution pin, I'm going to type call, and then Unreal is going to take some guesses. And it's going to say, oh, well, under call function, you've only got one function, which is start hello. Do you mean call the function start hello? And I do. So fantastic. So this is going to start the event begin play, immediately shift the execution over to calling the function start hello, which will call this, which will perform this. So we will see it as if event begin play was directly connected to print string, because it will start and then call the function will then perform that action. So let's compile, I will save, minimize this and go back to the Unreal editor. So as soon as we start this level, we should immediately see text in the upper left-hand corner. Boom, we see it right here. And then it disappeared after 2 seconds. So what happened? Well, event begin play happened right here. This node, which called the function start hello, happened. over in start hello, it immediately called print string. So we can start to see the power of functions within Unreal. If we have a very specific task we want to carry out, for example, changing a value, perhaps sending some information to a client or sending information to a server in a more complex setting, we just need to perform a short calculation. We can then create a sequence of functionality, a graph collection of nodes, and that will be our function within Unreal. We then, and another graph, can then call that function and then say, perform this action. So potentially we could also send data back and forth. So notice it says inputs and it says outputs. So let's just look at an example of this. So what I want as a new parameter and input to this is a string right here. I'm just going to call this new param. That's a totally fine value, but I don't want it to output anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the output of new param right here to the string hello. So whatever we get from however this is called, it will immediately pass this into new string and print it on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and compile. Now in the event graph, notice this is now changed. This is now an input. So what do we want? I'm going to put hello. Which doesn't really change what we saw, but this is it in practice. So notice over here, these are on the left-hand side, so these are inputs. Over here, this is on the right-hand side, these are outputs. So let's compile this. And so now event begin play is calling a function. We are passing in as a parameter the value hello, which over here is showing up as output being passed to print string and shown on the screen. So save this, minimize this, boom. Notice we don't perceive a difference, but internally, the value is starting on one graph, being passed to the function, which is then passing the data to the print string, which is then showing it on the screen. So we can pass data using functions, which is the purpose of that demonstration. And in fact, in more complex projects, that will be what we will use. We will pass data directly into a function, which will then use it in some manner. But this has been an introduction to just creating functions and just getting a taste of how they can be used within Unreal and within Blueprints, the visual scripting language it supports.